Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much for having me here. I started coming here maybe just before the pandemic, and I met up with the team, and I just really wanted to help out in some kind of way. As I'm sure many of you have been there. Though we had a lot of ideas and a lot of plans, but eventually it took me going all the way to Mexico to actually do something here. So I'm grateful to be here and amongst other like-minded people like yourselves. Yeah, so I've got a question for you guys because I've been living this long enough. So when you think about Mexico, what comes to mind? You could just shout it out. Piñatas. Anything else? Guacamole. Yeah. What's that? Tacos, for sure. Burritos yet? Yeah. Partying, food. That's a bit cheeky asking you because you can probably see where this is going. Okay. But when you think about Mexican Muslims, what comes to mind?
Maybe in America, North America, but not in Mexico.
Nothing, you don't conjure up any images. I mean, yeah, so that's kind of how I've been trying to see myself for most of my life because in a strange way, kind of, I'm half Pakistani, half Mexican. Growing up with a Pakistani family and a Mexican family, it's always been a bit of a distinction between cultures and especially religion. So, but I've always been Muslim, and I was raised Muslim, and I've always tried to figure out what is the connecting thread that connects all people and all cultures, and is it something deeper, like, Dino Fitra? That's kind of what we brought up understanding about Islam. So for me to embark on this journey in Mexico, Chiapas, was actually just out of curiosity and on a deeper level, a hope of understanding a little bit more. I'm going to try to do 2 slides at once, so this is going to be interesting. Let's see if I can get this going. Okay, cool. All right, so yeah, curiosity is kind of what has led a lot of my projects and a lot of my work. It's a kind of the initial stages of discovery, and those books that we've been passing out, that's part of a project that basically started out of curiosity. So essentially, me and my brother, who you can see in the photo, we were in Casablanca, and we came across a group of children who were just, teenagers who were passionate about calisthenics. And out of that kind of interest of wanting to photograph and be connected and see more of their passion in their lives, we went on a journey together which took us from Chef Shawan to the mountains of Chef Shawan. So it was an interesting project which was essentially bounded together by the understanding of brotherhood and belief in one another, but we could achieve something together and it's just that kind of unified understanding of belief in one another that kind of propelled this project to the state that it went to. But when you're going out on a project like this, you really need to go with your gut and your first initial instinct. So the photograph on the right was actually like my intention when I flew out to Casablanca at that time. It's it's not coincidental that I wrote it on a sick baggie because the whole thing is something internal, and you just need to go on that journey and see where it takes you. Let me just go to the next slide. Yeah, so I guess what I learned about working with the group and the kids the most was that there's a distinction that when you start on this project, it becomes really about, it starts off with yourself and about your own ideas and what you want to show out to the world, and sometimes that can get lost in and forgetting that you're actually dealing with humans and emotions and people. These aren't just subjects; these are human beings that are part of us as an ummah, and it's really like our duty to get to know one another and really understand what it is about them that makes them tick and what do they really want. So while I was on this project, I actually asked all of the kids who were involved with it, like, what is it that you want out of this? And this was a little quote that Zachariah, who is the guy that you can see in the bottom left, with his big smiley teeth, saying that he really wants to be rich and famous and do a job that he really loves. It's not a very impractical thing to ask for, but when you're kind of coming from a different social, economic standard, it is a dream. It's a dream that might be even hard to realize at times. But we persevered, and we spent about a good 5 years working on that project to get it to where it was, connecting the diaspora Moroccan community out here with the kids in Casablanca. We put on loads of different talks and just general awareness in order to raise money for these books to be printed. And our pledge to that was that whatever money that we did raise for those books, we were able to positively affect the lives of the people that were in it. And, you know, the project in itself, taking those photos, didn't last long. It was maybe the course of 6 weeks. But the connection with those people lasts even to this day. When you're able to invest in someone with your time, that's when you're really being able to impact someone's lives. You get to know them like a brother or like a sister, and that's what really counts. So, yeah, so once we were able to raise the money for these books, we sold quite a few, and we were able to put Zachariah through training so that he could be a qualified personal trainer in Morocco. And not too long ago, I found out that he just opened up his first gym. So, and that's with a business partner. So, like, you know, mashallah, these kind of things they pay off in bigger ways. And the main thing about them is really just really getting to know someone and inspiring them just by believing in them. And that can go way further than money can take you. So 4 to 5 years in the making. It's a long process to do something, especially when it's self-initiated. And, you know, a lot of the times this idea of leadership is it's talked about a lot in the West. Like, you know, everyone wants to be self-made, everyone wants to be entrepreneurs, but not everyone really has the endurance to see something like that through. And there are many times on that project that we were tested where, you know, we were fighting our internal struggle, like how far can we see this through, and what is the end of this project, and where would it go? And in a lot of ways, although it ended in 2019, it never really ends. It continues. So, yeah, creativity I found is a great tool in order to start and propel something, but it's not the ends of it all. And there needs to be something bigger behind it. So for us, it was the guys and the cause that we created for them. And that's one thing that I'll come on to later, but aligning yourself with a cause that you feel passionate about. And hopefully, like, the most passionate thing you could do is something involving your deen and being able to connect with others. That can propel you much further, and you get to learn a lot more about yourself. So aside from the world of mavericks and individuals and artists and all that, actually there's not enough emphasis that's put on people who are part of something bigger, and just playing your role in that is actually quite a profound thing that I found. So off to the mountains, from one mountain to the next, really. For a long time I didn't want to get back onto making projects because I didn't want it to just be about me. It needed to be about something else. I was searching. And I came across this community, as I'm sure many of you have, like, maybe some of you have seen the few bits of documentary pieces that are out there scattered about this community that exists in Chiapas. Has anyone heard of them? Has anyone seen? You guys have? Yeah? I'm just curious, like, a show of hands, like, roughly.
Well, I know because Buddha, you know the Buddha?
Oh, yeah. We're going to get to that. You're ruining the punch. Yeah. So, okay. So, yeah, basically, me and my family, about 2 years ago, we set off on a journey. Again, we left London. We're looking for a place to essentially settle and live, and, yeah, just kind of out of the hustle bustle of the city life. We started off in Oaxaca, which is a city which is, I don't know if you know much about it, but it's a very creative city. It's beautiful. It's full of art, lots of artisan products and gourmet food, and like you can spend a lot of time there really enjoying the culture. It was kind of the first stopping point that took way longer to eventually get to San Cristobal, which is where we're going with the story. If you don't know anything about it, it has a population of roughly 300,000 people. It's a small city. It's in the mountains. It's like 2,200 meters above sea level. So it's it takes quite a climb to get there. I learned the hard way. And it's one of the poorest cities in the state of the lowest economic growth in Mexico. So in a lot of ways, it's it's kind of secluded from the rest of the side of Mexico that you do see, that you get to know. So I didn't know what to expect. So I did a bit of research, and I was a little bit put off because I'd seen maybe some negative reviews, maybe somebody was killed, and these things, they happen, but for some reason in Mexico it gets a lot of attention. So I hit up a friend and asked basically, how safe is it? And he assured me, it was like, it's one of the safest cities. Like in Mexico, you got nothing to worry about. There's more people that die from things in America than they do out there. So you have to I had to fight that barrier first, but eventually, I think it was until I was listening to a lecture by Sheikh Abdul Umar Farouk, and he was saying something about how, he was talking about the primordial day of covenant, and how we witness Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that sometimes we meet people in our life, essentially, that we don't know how we know them, but we do know them from a very long time. And sometimes all it takes is you to go out there and for them to recognize you. So that was basically what kind of kicked me into gear. I just thought, well, what am I procrastinating about? Maybe I just need to go out there and just see what there is to see. So I drove for 9 hours. Family stayed in Oaxaca. Drove up to San Cristobal. Has anyone been to San Cristobal before I start building the myth? Okay. Right. Well, there's a reason why I got this photo in the background. It's a video of essentially like what I experienced when I went up that mountain. You're just ascending for about 40 minutes straight and slow. And you got to time these things right, but I had no idea. It was very naive. Started driving towards the time of sunset. Didn't think zero visibility was a thing ever till I got up there. And I'm driving up, and just all I could see was like the wing mirror in front of my car. That was about it. And, hazard lights on, everything, going at like 5 miles per hour. And then I can start seeing, like, on the side of me, there's like a bridge that's like, I don't know. I can see it's a bridge because I can see the rail, but I don't know how far down it is. I don't know how narrow this is. You can't see the cars coming through. Yeah, it was terrifying. Eventually, I made it through, just like Bismillah. It's just have faith in Allah on that. And eventually get to the other end, and it's amazing. It's beautiful. It's beyond my wildest dreams of what was up there. It's like, and ironically enough, it was a Walmart I was happy to see, because it was a Walmart and a Nissan dealership, I think. I was just like, okay, it's familiarity. You get in there, and it's just, amazing cobblestone streets with just like artisan coffee shops. And I'm greeted at the top of the mountain by a 6 foot tall Syrian man called Mudar, who's basically the sheikh, who I was put in contact when I was out there. Hope he's not on the call yet. He won't like me talking about him too much, but so part of being out there and really like understanding the situation of Chiapas was meeting Sheikh Mudar and understanding his story. He's an amazing person, just the dedication that it takes to endure living in a place where you're not really from. His journey is interesting. I'm going to try to get through it without getting emotional. But anyway, so he studied Islam in Syria University, and eventually took a very high-paid job in the UAE, where at some point, he's continuing practicing and also leading the Muslims out there to a certain degree. When I guess he realized that his calling wasn't to be working for like really high paid, like how long could that go on for? I think a lot of us can, I know I can relate to that. It's like you just get into a job or a situation where money's good, you're comfortable, but you ask yourself, is this what life is about? Being comfortable and, maybe there's more for you out there. And I imagine that was what was going on in his mind when he decided that he was going to pack it in and head towards the States to pursue a career as living as imam and spreading Islam. But for whatever reason he had, and for whatever reason I had, we had an inclination that maybe we should go to Mexico first and see what that entails. So, who knows why these things happen? But he goes out there and he realized that Mexico is where he needed to be. That's where his real calling was. So instead of going to a place where, again, like, life can be good and like really like, there's a lot of work to be done in all different places, especially Europe and America. But the struggle really is like when you feel that discomfort, I feel. And it's hard to ignore that. And I believe that it was hard for him to ignore that too. So he wound up becoming the imam in Mexico City for a long time, doing what he does like best, just inspiring and teaching people of, their religion, essentially. But for whatever reason, he decided to visit Chiapas. Like us and like some of us, he heard that there is a community out there that's indigenous, and that maybe there's, maybe let's go meet them and just see what we can do. I don't know how many of you know about how Islam came to Chiapas. Does anybody like have an idea about it? Okay, so there was a group of Spanish Muslims that decided to do dawah in Chiapas. I believe that this coincided around the time when there was big internal civil war that was happening with a neighboring town, Chamula, where between Protestants and Catholics, there was a lot of internal fighting, and it turned out to be quite aggressive. People's houses were burned, people were murdered, so they fled, and they settled in San Cristobal in the mountains there. National Reserve, essentially, which has now become their settlement, where they've been living since the 90s. And I believe it's the 90s. It's well documented, so that can easily be researched. But for the purpose of this story, I'm going to pick back up when the Muslims came there and they decided, with the best of intentions, that they were going to help these people who were going through some struggles and strife, and maybe invite them to the call of Islam. The earliest, I'd say, like, person that I met, he was about 34, when years might be a bit off, but he was about 12 years old when he met the original Spanish that came there. And, when he started telling me on camera about how that was, I'll try not to get choked up. Yeah, he said at 12 years old, he was it's funny because I wasn't crying when I saw that in the video. He said he was asking at 12 years old who God was. And then when he met those guys, he felt like his prayers were answered. And this went on for about 10 minutes. it's difficult to tell this story without getting choked up because you just gotta experience it. Like, I wanted to know how my Mexican side is connected to being Muslim. You just feel it. Sometimes there's no words for it. Anyway, so he became Muslim at 12, and eventually he brought his whole family into it, like his father, his grandfather. It's not the only story like that I heard out there. So it's
That was in the 90s.
that was in the 90s, yeah. That was in the 90s. So I have a belief that basically Sheikh obviously knows this because he felt it too. And there's something special about San Cristobal. We're talking about, like, 3 generations of, on average, the families are like, the whole family's Muslim. They're just on a personal level, it's like their understanding about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is simple. It's just like God is one, and it goes, and it's pretty much that. And everything else is kind of self-explanatory to some degree. I don't know, I find sometimes we read a lot and we try to learn all these things, but we know it, so, and they know it. And I believe that Sheikh's mission is in order to just be able to facilitate them of understanding it better. That's why he stayed there after the visit, more or less. He packed his stuff up from Mexico City just to stay amongst them. His he really believes that San Cristobal has the potential of being the center of Islam in Mexico, because it's not about the numbers game. This is the problem. Like, people get fixated on that, like it's the numbers game. It's about the quality of your iman, right? People feel it there. So his whole mission is to teach, help, and invite people, not just towards Islam, but to San Cristobal. And it's not just about inviting Muslims into Islam, it's about actually inviting Muslims to go visit San Cristobal and go meet these people, because there's something that can be learned, and something that can be shared. It's not always like you're going out there to give, you're actually going out there to receive. And that's a mindset that's hard to get into when you live in the West. We feel that we somehow privileged, when actually, what does that mean? Do we question that? Like, what's the reality of the situation? So it's not easy, the struggle out there. It's people visit. They like to visit and go and basically experience it. But what the community really needs out there is continuous help and connection. And they just need to know. Like, I summarized it. Basically, it's not about the money and all that, but I wrote this down. I said it's to raise the morale of Muslims in Chiapas and show that they're not alone in the Ummah, and that the Ummah cares for them. Because technically they're a minority in a minority. It's like, if there's 300,000 people there, then maybe there's only 300 of them there. But it doesn't matter, because it's like, it's a generational thing. Like, I don't know how I'm not going to get choked up with the rest of this, but yeah. Anyway. All right, so on a happier note, let me get to the next slide. So that's my family. So I met up with Sheikh, and it was just like, well, just come. He just said, come and experience it. So we did that, and I brought my family. My brother and my sister-in-law flew in from California. We spent Ramadan with them. We spent Eid with them. It was beautiful. I really, because I know I've probably gone on a bit. I want to see, is my brother there?
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I was actually traveling the previous year with my wife and visiting various Muslim countries, and then Ibrahim invited us when we came back to California. He invited us to come visit the community in Chiapas. And at first, I was like, well, it's not. I'm like, oh, I want to go have a Muslim experience, go to a Muslim country, see what it's like, being out in the West after a while. You kind of want that renewal of being part of the community in a bigger sense. And it's strange that, he invites me to a place where I least expect to have that experience. And of course, I do end up having that experience. And one of the things is, I was reflecting on this earlier today, and as we've come into the new Islamic year, we're sitting here at 1,445 years after Hijrah. And I was thinking, even now in that community, still seeing people still following that. People are migrating, doing Hijrah there in a sense. And you see the community in its infancy, in its early stages. And like Ibrahim said, it's very overpowering. And, I remember sitting there with Mudar on Eid day, knee to knee, and he was the only one in the room at the time. Everybody had gone outside to get ready for like the festivities. And he had asked me, and it was strange because I had been looking for someone or for like a sign, and then he sits there literally looking at me, just telling me, in other words, sometimes you just have to do your part, and you're needed somewhere, and I felt like it was just talking to me right there in that moment about everything I wanted to kind of hear, and then from there on, we kind of started to talk about, okay, I'm here for a few weeks with Ibrahim. What can we do? And me and Ibrahim have done previous things in the past that he mentioned, and so we came about discussing various things that the community needs, and I'm sure he's going to elaborate on those a bit more soon. And like we realized that there is something you can do in this, and even if it is as little as reaching out to people, which is not little, but I mean, um, it's just amazing when you get to that realization of belonging to the community in that sense.
This was this Ramadan, the seed, so like we were there, and I just wanted to like look at these photos a little bit, because like a lot of the times when like Chiapas is beautiful, like it's just amazing, like it's green, it's like waterfalls, canyons. I mean, this is old as anything is. And you got horse riding, like that in the bottom right corner. When I did that trip to the Chiflon, which is like this big enormous like a spring, it's a waterfall, but it just comes out of the water table, it just squirts out, and it just creates this like, I mean, you really feel the power of Allah when you're standing in front of something like that. It's amazing. This little crocodile that we saw in a cenote down there, and artisan stuff, food, like all the stuff that you imagine. So it's beautiful. So just in terms of like, just Chiapas being a place where not only like there's a cause, you can ask for a better cause, because you got the most amazing holiday you could get out of it as well. So it's really a no-brainer if you want to help and experience that. I want to quickly jump on to the next few points. We've got to try to get that speaker working, because we're going to be getting into a bunch of video content now. So let me just see if I can do that.
That's very close to the southern border, right?
Yeah, so yeah, Chiapas is on the border of Guatemala. So like I mentioned it, but like the indigenous Mayans who speak Tzotzil, and it's an indigenous language that's kind of in decline, and their community, it kind of crosses the border of Guatemala as well. So it kind of goes into, it's like Chiapas and Guatemala. So it's important for one of the initiatives that I'm going to talk to you guys about, but it's, yeah, they speak the same language. They're the same thing. It's just, these invisible borders that we got there. Just briefly speaking, he took a shahada in America, and it was all through the curiosity of a Moroccan football player he was wondering like, what is this guy running off and doing in the middle of practice every time he's like bowing down on the ground and everything. So eventually that brought him to Islam, but he found his way back to Mexico to study, but he wanted to go live amongst Muslims. So he essentially just went out there to help out, and we're going to hear about his story in a second. Yeah, so yeah, let me just get into it. I'm going to play you the video.
You do wonder like how this animal eats grass and plants, but alhamdulillah, you get meat out of that animal. In a sense, it's unbelievable because they are so strong. It's just like an adrenaline rush. You get this type of fear. It's not like a scary type of fear, but it's a respect type of fear. I try to do the rites of sacrifice as best as I can so that the animal stays calm, the animal don't suffer. I guess you can say that it dies quickly. I came out to San Cristobal about 7 years ago. I found out about the community, and there was a small community over here during college. I wasn't really comfortable being alone as a Muslim, so I decided to come out here only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There was no other reason. My intentions were really just to come out here and help out. Sheikh Mudar tells me, would you be interested in working as a butcher apprentice? I was like, well, if you really needed me to, I could do it. He's like, yes, we need you to do it because the main butcher, he's only going to be there a couple months. And so he said that we should find somebody to train so that he takes over the butcher shop. When the opportunity arises, you have to take it. And I never expected to be a halal butcher, you know. Sometimes I said, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm just doing it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that just gives me the extra push to do it. First, I just started cleaning the shop, sweeping the shop. And then the butcher started teaching me how to manage the meat, how to store the meat, what kind of pieces to do certain cuts. We have limited resources, but we are self-sustainable. And a lot of the brothers and sisters out here, they are also limited in resources. I've been a butcher now for a year, so with all this knowledge that I have, I can hopefully share that knowledge so that other brothers and sisters may benefit from it, inshallah. So it's been about a month after the Eid, and a lot of the brothers and sisters haven't really ate meat that much because of the location that we have right now. Opening a butcher shop closer to the city would be great for them to get more access to halal meat. It is really essential for a community to have meat available anytime, because before, like, we would go a year without eating meat. So if you eat halal, you're gonna try to do your best to do halal things. You practice your faith, practice Islam. It really puts that nur that you need in your heart when you feed from halal animals.
So that's Yusuf. And it's one of the things that when the first time I met him, I remember him telling me that, did you know that one of the Sahaba was a butcher? And he was like, I was like, no. And how did you know that? Like, you know, it's just, and he goes, yeah, Khalid ibn al-Walid, he was a butcher at one point. And he was like, yeah, I'm kind of like that out here of doing that. It really is beautiful seeing people who just really embrace the story and like want to be a part of it in their own lives. And, you know, how when they have their calling, they just find the good in things. And, you know, so we're essentially helping to open up a butcher shop, as he said, in the center where more of the community is based. this particular shop is a bit far out and they don't really have access to it that often. Like he was saying, that shop that you saw there was actually gifted to them. So a lot of the machinery as well was gifted to them by somebody who just was leaving. So they've managed to keep that running and get that sustainable to a point where, you know, he's able to make a living for himself out there. He is passionate about serving the community and wanting to be able to teach other brothers and sisters in the community how to be sustainable, because it is a decent, even though he said it like, you never thought it'd be a halal butcher. Yeah, I never thought it'd be a graphic designer. Like, I never thought, you know what I mean? There's like, how do we fall into these trades? But like, he's very aware of it and he wants to be able to just share that knowledge with other people. So there's a crowdfunder up. So I'd encourage you, if you want to help out, we're trying to raise $20,000 to start that butcher shop. It requires equipment, renting, being able to train another staff member, share it, donate, however you want to be a part of it. That's just like on an initial level. Sheikh helped set this initiative up with Helping Hands, I believe. They sponsored a workshop in order to help some of the indigenous women out there from the community to learn how to do sewing and pattern cutting, so they're able to make a living for themselves and essentially also produce like Muslim clothing, because if you can imagine, it's quite difficult to find anything like that out there for the community. So they're very passionate about doing that, and my sister-in-law is also very passionate about it, and we're gonna hear from her now.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, my name is Maria Irena, and today I just wanted to talk to you guys about a project I'm working on right now with some of our sisters in Chiapas, Mexico. And this all started a few months ago when my brother-in-law Ibrahim invited us to Mexico for Ramadan and to spend time with him and his family, and of course our Chiapas community. So being out there, of course, was a very soul-enriching experience, and it reminds me of a Hakim Murad quote that I heard, that Islam is not meant to change you, but for you to continue as you were in a purified fashion. They have upheld Islam so beautifully, and it was a learning experience for myself, especially as a Mexican convert to Islam. Was touched by the experience and was looking for opportunities on how I can share this with other people. And mashallah, a lot of the sisters do embroidery, so we came up with an idea together to sell hijabs and create some more income, of course, for our sisters in Chiapas, and to share these designs as more than just something aesthetic, but as a learning experience of how beautiful and diverse our Islamic Muslim communities are all over the world.
She's wearing one of the scarves that the women made out there. We did a test batch actually of about 15 or 20 scarves, where each woman, they did their own design on it. I was learning a little bit out there about the different styles of embroidery, but like the different tribes out there have different styles that they do. And so they were practicing this hand embroidery style over all of these. And, you know, those are doing really well in California right now. But there's, you know, this is just another example of like somebody going out there and just trying to do whatever they're passionate about with the community out there. They're in constant communication with the leading sister on the project. And inshallah, they're going to be successful. And who knows, like they might even start a brand, and that could go. I mean, the Muslim market is huge. So, you know, if they manage to succeed in that, then it will be amazing for the community. So that's just like another example of how, you know, once you feel connected with them, you could align your own passions with the cause. These guys, these are the elders of the community. Some of them. Yeah, I told you about like how I met one of the he started crying on camera and telling me about his conversion story, and just generally how he wound up like bringing his whole family into Islam. But you know, he was very grateful despite whatever happened to the community after that, and that kind of carried on into to the elders, and they essentially, out of their own wanting understand for what does the Quran mean, they speak Tzotzil. It's a language that's slowly disappearing because not many of the youngers are speaking it. They're speaking Spanish, and their vocabulary is kind of being washed away with that. So for them to hear the Quran and the meaning of the Quran in their own language is like amazing. Like I remember when they were telling me the first time that they heard what that actually means, they were so impacted by it. I think it was Umar Farooq who actually said that, like, we learn about God through our mother tongue. Like, so when you're able to like communicate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your own tongue, it's just like, it's able to impact you on a different level. So the guy over there in the corner, his name is Abu Bakr. He's 100 years old. Yeah, he's 100. And that guy next to him is about 80. And I think the one on the right is about that age as well. They basically get together in groups now. So this started in before the pandemic. And they decided that they wanted to start translating the Quran into Tzotzils. So Sheikh Madar helping them with Arabic, and he speaks fluent Spanish. So trying to explain what it means in his best in Spanish for them to find the right words in Tzotzil, and then eventually like put that together. So since for the past 2 years, I'd say, because there was a big pause in between, they've translated about a juz, more or less, of the Quran. So it's like a 30th. And they got a lot more to go. But we wanted to be able to share that with the rest of the 300,000 Tzotzils out there. So we thought the best way to do that was YouTube. So we started a channel which is called Los Creyentes de Chiapas, the believers of Chiapas. I should have said that in the beginning. Creyentes means believers. It wasn't my idea, by the way. That was one of their ideas. So so we started on that channel, and every week we're putting out a surah that they've already translated with the typography, so you can read along and they can hear it on a regular basis. I'll play you a bit of one of them right now, just so you can hear what Fatiha sounds like in Tzotzil.
Slikebal Tzcham ti libroem, la sura que abre el libro. Tasbi kahval, libuchulek yontone, libuchu eps kushul yontone. Skotol timuyum taile, hayun ti kahval tike. Ha yahval skotol tikositik oye. Libuchulek yontone, libuchu eps kushul yontone. Yahval tikakal milastas kakalil ti chapanele. Hano osh ti bote tashakich otkutik tamuk. Hano osh buot taksa otkutik kalal takangkutik koltaele. Ikong kutik bal tatukilbe. Hechakucha alla kushubinan. Maog te chibat kutik tibuchulach shasas kakala bontone. Maog tasbe tibuchuch ayemike.
It's just about deepening their understanding of the deen. There's a few challenges with the project. So basically, the duration of time it takes in order to translate these. I've sat in these sessions. It's not quick. It really is slow. There's a lot of back and forth between the women on the other side of the veil and the elders on that side. They're constantly talking about it. It's all recorded and documented. We'll be putting that out at some point. It's actually quite beautiful when you see it. But essentially, it's going to bottleneck at some point, because by the time we've put out all of the videos that have been recorded with audio, we're going to probably run out of. We got to post one a week. So basically, we got about maybe 30 surahs. It's not going to take that long, but before we get to that point, so we're going to be starting to try to crowdfund in order to pay for Yasin, who's the voice that you heard on top of it, to essentially be able to quit his job, do this full time, support his family, and basically speed up the process so that we can do that. Just to give you a bit of context about, just in terms of time and what we as an Ummah need to be doing, just in comparison, when the Christians went out there in the 60s or the 40s, they pretty much translated all of the Quran into, all of the Bible into Tzotzil that long ago. And it takes us like 3 months, 3 years to do a juz. So we got a lot of catching up to do in that front. So if we can, we want to be able to pay for someone to do that full time. And also the other part of it is we're looking for a coder who's able to so if any of you know a coder, anybody who can do apps, we want to be able to put all of the audios into an app so that they could just like listen to it like you would like Chrome.com or something like that. Because the bandwidth there is like kind of like YouTube is very heavy on that, and people don't have a lot of data as well. So if they're at least able to download the app, they can download all that and just listen to it. So that's another thing that we're working on with that. So last but not least is Saida and Teresa. So when I was there on Eid, Sheikh asked me to take the camera out and start taking a few photos for people because they were asking. So I did. I didn't go there with the initiative to want to film or document anything. I just wanted to be amongst them as Ramadan and Eid. So, but that's how this all started, this project. So this little girl comes and just like tugs on my thing while I'm taking photos, and she's like, "Assalamu alaikum, puedes sacar una foto de nosotros?" Like, just really cute. Like, I was like, "Yeah, of course." And she's like dressed like, she was on the front cover. It's like, it's just like very angelic, like looking face that just comes up to me and asks, "Can I take a photo?" It wasn't until after that photo I find out her story, and my sister-in-law comes up to me. He's like, "Yeah, do you know about Saida?" So basically, she took her shahada at 4 years old, and she told her mother that she just wanted to be Muslim after she saw people wearing the hijab, and it's just she didn't know anything about it, but she just wanted to do that. And her mother was against it at first because they're Catholic, and she's like, "I don't know anything about this," but she wanted to encourage her daughter to wake up for Fajr because that was something they do, to help her do wudu and that. Through that, her grandmother converted just by seeing the effort, and eventually her mom converted. So she's a very special girl. And when you meet her, you'll see what I mean. So I'm just going to play the video.
إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر.
So she's 6, and she's been Muslim for 2 years, and she prefers going to madrasa more than she does going to actual school, and that's kind of the bigger project that we need a lot of people and we need a lot of help for. Sheikh was able to essentially create a madrasa, huge, just beautiful. Like I stayed like right there. It's able to accommodate people who come and stay there, but there's just not enough people to help run it effectively. People come, people go, people aren't necessarily committed. He wants to essentially create a whole school environment where the children that are growing up there are not influenced by the terrible public school system that's out there. They sing and dance all day, pretty much is what he described it. It's like they're not really being taught education per se. It's in decline in Mexico. He wants to be able to give them, he's able to get them an actual qualified high school, up till high school. But he needs teachers who can be dedicated to want to go teach there, and to be able to facilitate the first batch of children, Montessori style, I'm imagining, so it's be like a group of kids from various different age groups that are within a safe environment, so that they'll also be able to advance their Islamic studies and Quran reading, but alongside all of their public schooling. So that it's huge, and I think it's achievable, because essentially what we need are people, and you are important in that, because if you're connected with this story to a certain degree, we would hope that you two become ambassadors of this and just try to guide people towards Chiapas to go help out. We're working now with Rumi's Cave, and they're going to be supporting us, and we're going to be trying to find different ways that we can regularly bring people out there to just meet the community and to just be able to just bring what it is you guys are best at. Like, we need psychologists, we need teachers, we need learned people, generally people who can teach English, permaculturalists, if that's a word, people in sports and health, and we'll inshallah be putting out more with Rumi's Cave, so just stay tuned.
Bye everyone.